on the News Channel 5 network. This is Inside Politics.
Hello, everyone. I'm News Channel 5's political analyst, Pat Nolan. Welcome to Inside Politics. Just 2 months after efforts to impeach President Donald Trump seemed to be at an end, Democrats in the U.S. House of Representatives this week began a formal investigation with a goal to impeach and for the first time ever remove a president from office. What's changed? What are the chances of impeachment by the House and removal by the President of the Senate, by the Senate? And what impact will all this have on American politics, in particular next year's 2020 presidential race where President Trump is seeking re-election? On Inside Politics this week, we brought in two of our best political analysts to tell us where we are and where we may be headed in this still developing story. They are Democrat Larry Woods, a Nashville attorney, and Republican strategist and lobbyist Bill Phillips. Gentlemen, in an eventful week, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi had been the person sort of standing in the way of progressive Democrats within her caucus to move forward on impeachment. She had cautioned patience and said, let's pursue other investigations in the administration first. Now, Bill, she's leading the charge to call for these impeachment proceedings. What's changed so suddenly?
Well, she was on an interview on national TV where she said she hasn't changed her mind. It's the circumstances have come to that it's necessary now. And I think that's right. Larry, I think, will agree that she all along thought this was going to happen, but she was waiting for the moment, and the president has provided it.
And this Ukrainian telephone call with the leader there, Larry, it's a gun in a situation, but is it smoking?
It's the perfect storm that's going to hurt President Trump. You know, it's the new president of the Ukraine, just got elected in January and took office a couple of months later. By the way, a TV star who's a big entertainer won in a big upset. Sound familiar to be the presidential election? You know, the Ukrainian guy just came into office. The $400 million in our tax money was just authorized a few months ago to go to the Ukraine. And for at least a couple of years, Mr. Trump has been pretty eaten up on his Twitter feed and other things about there's some role for the Ukraine in the deep state conspiracy theory that he favors about somebody's taken over our government and stolen it from him. So this call by Trump to the Ukrainian president really does, everything sort of comes together when we see this whistleblower letter or memorandum.
Bill, this president and the Trump administration has had so many controversies, so many scandals, so many problems, particularly coming out of the Russian investigation for the past 2 years. Why is this thing any different? Why is this going to have any more gravity or more traction towards moving towards impeachment than any of the others have?
Well, from what we know now, the difference is that the Russians were trying to interfere with our election. Here we have a president that supposedly has said, will you help me interfere with our election?
And he was more directly involved in this rather than the Russian thing. A lot of it was associates or things that supposedly happened, but you didn't have any direct indication that he was directly involved. Is that right, Larry?
The Trump defense in the Mueller investigation, which half of which focused on did Mr. Trump, as a political candidate, reach out and solicit help from a foreign government, the Russians. The problem, as Mueller reported, was there was no direct proof that Mr. Trump personally himself ever did such. This time there is. Right there's the transcript that the White House released where Trump does ask for a favor from the Ukrainian president. Clearly, you know, if I'm a candidate, the law forbids me from seeking assistance from foreign governments or any foreign national in the political sense, and that's what it appears that Trump has violated.
Now, both the summary of this call with the Ukrainian president and the whistleblower complaint about it have been publicly released. That seems to be a change in tactics for the administration. In the past, when there's been requests for information or for testimony, it's either been executive privilege or resisting subpoenas or even going to court about the matter. Why is the president changing his tactics? Is this working for him or is it backfiring?
Well, a lot of people are scratching their heads about that. But whenever there's a call like that takes place, there's two stenographers down in the situation room taking notes. Then they compare their notes, they put it together. Well, this gives a little level of deniability on the president's part because it's not a tape recording, as Mr. Nixon taught us the perils of that.
And that seems to be when that changed. Yeah. In the past, they were taped before Watergate. They have not been taped since.
That's right. My experience was that they were not taped, but they were recorded. And so I think the White House thought, well, issue that, and that'll show, you know, and it's backfired.
Yeah, I really don't understand that. If the White House, if the Trump forces wanted time to prepare a defense, one way to get time is, well, we'll argue for a month or two whether this ever really happened. And by releasing the summary, the transcript, whatever they're calling it, we all know it's not alleged or an allegation. Right there it is from the White House.
Coming out from the whistleblower complaint, this appears to be a blueprint for how the House investigators, and for that matter the Senate, because the Senate Intelligence Committee is also looking into this matter, could use this as a roadmap for who to talk to, how this all came down, and what happened to those documents after they were recorded, because apparently they were given a level of security that was unprecedented and may appear to be, to some people, a cover-up. But do you now believe the administration might change their tactics back and be resistant on releasing any more information or allowing their people to testify, because they're going to be asked to do that?
We're going to see just how smart Speaker Pelosi is. I think she ought to announce, in addition to canceling the 2-week recess that she's basically already done, I think she ought to announce, look, we spent 1 week investigating Kavanaugh for the Supreme Court. Let's spend 2 weeks investigating this phone call by President Trump. And at the end of 2 weeks, we're going to take a vote. And if Mr. Trump has so many witnesses he wants more time, fine, we'll work that out. But as far as the House of Representatives is concerned, we need to do this right now and not stretch it out for 6 months.
Well, Bill, is this thing moving too quickly for the Democrats? I mean, the polls had indicated before this week there was a pretty strong opposition to impeachment. Now, before these documents were released this week, the most latest poll showed about a 3-point difference, about 49% against it, about 46% for it. Now, with these documents out, do you think public opinion is beginning to turn back in favor of what the Democrats want to do?
Well, early signs are that it is turning in favor of Congress following suit, because that transcript has changed the scene. So it's going to be interesting to see how fast things can move.
But Larry, so far there's been no real indication, a few indications, maybe small ones, that the Republicans are cracking a little bit, but it seems in both the Senate and the House there's pretty strong support for the president. And if we don't get bipartisan to pass it in the House, and particularly to pass it in the Senate because it takes 2/3 for removal, this is going to be dead on arrival when it gets to the Senate.
True, but what impressed me, one of the TV channels this morning or late last night put up the visual display of the photographs of all the senators in the Senate who are Republicans who didn't come out and say, oh, there's nothing to this. And it had 18 Republican senators up on the screen who said things about like Lamar Alexander said that, well, it depends on what shows up during the investigation.
Particularly the Senate Intelligence Committee.
Right. And for a vote to impeach, to convict on the impeachment, you know, if all the Democrats vote against him, which I'm not entirely confident that's 100% surety, but close to it, they need at least 20 Republicans, and there were 18, I would say, leaning into a neutral zone this morning. Not saying they'd vote for it. I don't mean to say that, but that surprised me and impressed. And I heard Pelosi say it in her live interview this morning. Look, this is about the country and our future. It's not about being a Republican or a Democrat. And I think, yeah, in Watergate and in the Clinton impeachment, I think most of our senators of both parties came around and really voted their conscience rather than their political allegiance by the time it was over.
Democrat Larry Woods, our guest, along with Republican Bill Phillips. We're talking about the developments in Washington this week that have put impeachment back on the front burner politically. Back to continue our conversation after this break.